Hello, everyone. On the 26th, in the very, very small hours of May, Jupiter is moving into Gemini. And this by itself is not such a big deal, really, because Jupiter uh, takes 12 years to orbit around the Sun. It means that every year it's changing signs. But at the same time, it's still a large planet. It's the largest planet in the solar system. It is linked to enthusiasm, optimism, enlargement, large scale things, and everything. Whatever it touches, it blows up. Sometimes out of proportions, even bad things. So actually, we do look at Jupiter's sign, especially the sign changes, to see what will blow up. And well, because it's in Gemini, information will blow up big time. The moment it enters there, the this year's voting season will escalate. This is what you're going to see. There are some very important elections this year, not just the EU election, but also the American election and all kinds of other minor elections. And information war will really rage. This is what I think is going to happen. I did not go back to the previous Gemini ingress because I don't really think that with ingresses we should actually look at seriously, because there's always a different energy pattern. But let's take a look at the London chart as it is occurring at the very, very small hours right after midnight on the 26th in London. And as you can see, there are a couple of highlights in the London chart. First of all, Capricorn is rising, so the chart ruler is Saturn in Pisces, but Ceres is on the ascendant, nurturing principle, and Dark Moon Lilith, the curse, the acceptance of the curse, is also rising. Opposite it on the descendant is Vesta. Focus on your enemies, focus on your spouse, focus on your alliances. On the midheaven, there's Pallas Athena, wisdom. And on the IC, there's Uranus, disruption, chaos, anarchy, and change. So the London chart is very, very prominent. If you speak Magyar, or if you just want to see another chart, it's a very different chart what we have in Hungary. The complex planetary picture that we are going to take a look at in a second is the same, of course, but here the angles are very, very prominent. And if you consider the fact that there's going to be an election on the 4th of July, actually, it's quite funny because one of my students notified me and looked at the chart, and he said that, Matt, this is about you if you watch this, that Rishi Sunak must have an astrologer to select that particular day. And of course, I agree, because most Indian people use astrologers. Of course, not this side, but the Vedic. But still, it will be interesting to look at. We're certainly going to look at the election day as well. But as you can see, the Jupiter ingress is very prominent in the London chart. And if you consider the fact that the Ukrainian war could have ended 2 years ago, even right after it started, but for Boris Johnson, who then went to Kiev and spoke to and simply forbid the peace talks. That is kind of really bad. Unfortunately, you English, I love you, I dearly love you, but now you can be proud of two mass murderers. One is your ex-prime minister who was responsible to trigger the Iraqi war, saying or stating that there are mass destruction weapons, and it turned out there weren't any. And now with Boris Johnson, the other prime minister, who actually ordered the Ukrainians to continue the war. Not very nice, to say the least. We are also going to look at this traffic jam down here in detail. But if you take a look, as Jupiter enters Gemini, will be exactly conjunct Sedna, the creation, the archetype of creation through dissection. So that's the main feature here. You can see that there is a complex planetary picture, and it's partly dissociated because Neptune is at the very end of Pisces at 29 degrees 33. And the rest of the planets are at the early degrees of the signs. What is really closing this complex planetary picture is the Moon, Pluto, Lilith, the asteroid Lilith, trans-Pluto, Astrea, and Venus. And which is out of balance really is Neptune, because it's in the previous sign, not yet in Aries, which it won't actually ingress Aries until the final ingress is, I think, is going to be in 2026 only, but in 25 already it will go into Aries and then go back to Neptune, to its own sign. So that's what Neptune does. So and then the sun is interesting because the sun is around 65 or 6 degrees Gemini. So actually what it does, it's not part of the complex planetary picture per se, because the orb is too wide, but it highlights the whole. So it illuminates and fills it with energy and consciousness. So let's take apart what we see here. There is a mutable T-square involving really Venus. I included Sedna and Jupiter as well, because they are, of course, there, and the sun, but it's really Venus that is closing the structure. So there's a Venus-Lilith opposition, which on the one hand gives the base of the T-square, and trans-Pluto dimension jump is at the apex. And on the other hand, it gives you the base for this classic trapeze, which is partly dissociated because of Neptune. And the trapeze is made by Lilith, revolt against injustice, Venus, finances and love, and Pluto, Neptune as its top. And anyone who was born in the 20th century probably has the Neptune-Pluto sextile, especially if you work as a traditional astrologer and you give even 5 degrees to a sextile, then definitely you will have it. But of course, in karmic astrology, we use much smaller orbs, tighter orbs, really, because we work with so many things. So what is the Pluto-Neptune sextile, which is actually at the moment a semi-sextile energy, because Aquarius and Pisces are next to each other. It's the potential sextile to utilize magic, Pluto, and of course power, and clairvoyance or transcendental things, Neptune. So that's the top of the classic trapeze. There's also a dissociate. Okay, I did not put this away. Anyhow, there's a dissociate kite involving Neptune. Again, this is very dissociate, Jupiter and Sedna, and of course the two other celestial objects, Lilith and trans-Pluto. And there's also a finger of fate, which is perfect, with Venus, Astrea, Karma Breaker, and the Moon. The Moon is in Capricorn, showing that we, the people, don't really feel too well in this particular space-time moment. Of course not, when they are talking about war and atomic war and crisis and all kinds of things, which is man-made. These things are all man-made. And I suggest, if you really want to understand what's going on, then try to read about what triggered the First and Second World Wars, how they came into being, how it started off with just some minor misunderstanding, and then hatred was growing, and then they poured a lot of money and weapons into it, and all of a sudden the whole thing escalated. This is what you see. That's what's so scary about it. So this is the finger of fate, at the apex of which there is the Moon. And there's also a mutable air engine involving the Jupiter, Sedna, Venus, Sun, triple conjunction, Pluto. So this is an air trine, and trans-Pluto is squaring this fourfold conjunction. So that's what you see. And if we look at the transcendental celestial objects, there are quite a number of ones this time. Let's start with the sun. You have Chaldea there. Actually, it was the Chaldean priests who actually created astrology by simply observing the sky and noting in their clay tablets what is occurring. That is why the early astrology is usually labeled as omen astrology. And this is not really an omen astrology. It simply notes what is happening in the sky, and they were trying to find correlation between up there and down here, as above, so below, as the Hermetic axiom says. On the moon, you have Galahad, a knight in shining armor. So this is what we need, that we the people need. On Venus, you have Apophis, the serpent who swallowed the sun in Egyptian mythology, complete destruction. Lucifer, who is constantly questioning God. And do we need Lucifer? Yes. We need the energy of Lucifer, the archetype of Lucifer, because we forgot what we received from God, what the divine intervention means, what divinity itself and divine creation means. And that's why we need Lucifer. And Mirfak, of course, which is Alpha Perseus, which is a very masculine star, challenge-oriented, fight-oriented. This is where we learn to fight for ourselves. This is all on Venus. On Jupiter, Sedna, which is at 0 degrees again, Jupiter just entered Gemini. You have Karma, situation is very karmic. Lachesis, which is the middle of the fates, who is measuring the threads of your life. And Mors Somnus, which is a TNO, which I'm going to look at it in detail in a minute, and the Pleiades. And right at the very end of Taurus, there's also the Pelion, which we are going to look at as well separately. On Neptune, we have a number of things. Icarus, hubris asteroid, things, ideological fights are going on in the world, and we are not taking into account the consequences, how ideology can turn into true weapon. Astronomy, of course. Aphrodite, the love goddess of the Greeks, counterpart of Venus. Academia, academic knowledge. Demeter, the mother and mothering goddess. Pythia, clairvoyance. Fortuna, fortune. So these are all Neptune. And again, by the way, magenta means asteroids. They are the karmic layers of personal, on a personal level. The blue ones are TNOs, centaurs, SEOs. These are archetypes that are linked to our karmic wounds and are either turned into phobias or special traits. And the red ones are fixed stars, which are not part of the solar system. They are out there in the universe, and they are either healing worlds or preparation worlds on higher dimensional levels where the soul can prepare for a difficult incarnation or can heal from a different and very difficult incarnation. So on Neptune, there's also Sheat, the alpha star of, or the beta star of Pegasus, which is the main healing bird for fresh suicide victims. On Pluto, we have Altair still, which is Alpha Aquila, and this is one of the shaman stars. So again, healing and world travel, traveling up the world tree is linked to it. On actually on the Trans-Pluto, you have Memnosune, memory, and Trans-Pluto is dimension jump and channeling. And this means that we should channel and understand what is going on and what used to be going on earlier and learn from it and understand processes. And on Astrea, karma breaker is the personal karma breaker is Astrea. There's Sphinx, secrets, Achilles, becoming vulnerable, Gaia, Mother Earth, and Ceres. Ceres is one of the so-called perfection centaurs. There's a bunch of centaurs who want to better themselves, who understand that they are half animal and want out of this animal existence. And Ceres is perfecting himself by cultivating the arts and beauty and all kinds of things linked to it. And on Lilith, you have Erato, a muse of erotic poetry. This is the traffic jam in Aries. And as you can see, a lot of stuff is going on. First of all, Mars is exactly almost to the minute conjunct Hygeia. So first of all, Mars is, of course, the fighting instinct. In its own sign, it is very, very strong and is ruling this whole traffic jam. Let's start with the North Node, which is of course, retrograding in Aries. And it will be there for another half year. So it will still be there this year, this full year, which means we can still learn how to fight for what's you, what's ours, what is important to us, how to exercise our will. This is when we can learn this type of behavior. We won't be able to do it for the next 18 years. So this is the time, because by next time this year, this time next year, we will have Pisces, and Pisces is about self-sacrifice and about clairvoyance and understanding stuff on an esoteric level, but nowhere near fighting. So this is what we need to do, and the powers that be, what they are trying to do is push us into this full-blown European war. And if we do this, next year will be about sacrifice big time. So this is why we need to fight against this whole thing. As I said, the Mars Hygeia conjunction is very, very tight. This is our saving grace, because Hygeia means to clear up things, to create safe and sacred spaces around us, to be clean and healthy and restore health and energy. And these are on exactly conjunct on the degree of the April 8th solar system. Now, if you want to understand what happened there, you need to go back to my video. I have a full video on this. I will put its link into the description below, so you will be able to click on it. I don't need to repeat myself. It would be much longer. This video would be much longer if I did this. So that's what is happening here. And there's also a Chiron Aries conjunction, applying conjunction. Chiron is coming up to an exact conjunction to Aries, drastically altered outward circumstances. That is what you see in the whole world. And of course, Chiron is our karmic wounds. It spends the longest period in Aries. And of course, the wounds are linked to fights, wars, aggression, violence, blood, fire, all kinds of stuff. And here are the TNOs. As I said, when an outer planet or a big planet is at 0 degrees something, I always look at what else is there. And now I only selected the TNOs, 2 TNOs, centaurs, which are a whole bunch, trans-Neptunians really. So they are all linked to our karmic wounds, and also about, they describe the special traits and also the phobias that are linked to it. Let's start with Aran, which is at the very, very end of Capricorn, so not yet in Aquarius, but still moving to Aquarius. Aran was the lord of the underworld in old Vaj mythology, and the Vaj said that at the equinoxes, its dogs are running across the skies. And in Christian era, these dogs were chasing down the souls of the damned into the underworld. And this Plutino is linked to permanently altered states of consciousness. So not alcohol-induced or drug-induced altered states of consciousness, but something that we are able to see into the fabric of the universe and see things there and glean understanding there. So it's the panoramic mind that is linked to Aran, and of course experiences that are ruled by it or are triggered by it. Asbolus is a seer centaur, and he's constantly ridiculed when he makes a mistake, but completely neglected when he speaks the truth. So clairvoyance and the ability to draw very rapid conclusions is linked to it, but at the same time, humiliation and persecution of linked to clairvoyance as well. And whenever you are ridiculed for being weird, and also the Cassandra syndrome is linked to it. Haumea, which is at the very early, at 0 degrees Scorpio and has been there for quite a while. She is a Hawaiian creation and fertility goddess. So what she does is she constantly renews and rejuvenates herself and becomes younger, in order to bear even more children with his sons and grandsons. So first of all, incest is also linked to it, but at the same time, Haumea is this constant creation process, but also because the person, anyone who has somewhere very, very prominently in his or her chart, is obsessed with youth and wants to be young at all costs. So it is very much linked to plastic surgery and which is overdone in many sense. Okay, more Somnus, which is on the Jupiter Stebna conjunction. And more Somnus is, of course, the two sons of Nyx and Erebus. And Nyx and Erebus were there at the creation of Gaia, when Gaia emerges from the void of chaos. Three entities come with her: Nyx, Erebus, and Eros. Uh, and so they are there at the very, very beginning of creation. And these two sons are there by Nyx and Erebus. And they used to be the twin lords of the underworld. And when Pluto comes along, then they start serving Pluto. And when it was discovered and named, this is a period, a couple of years, where two things are occurring. One is that zombie movies become very, very popular, zombie movies and zombie series. And the other one is that insomnia becomes prevalent in among big city dwellers and people who lead very, very stressful lives. Believe me, if you lived in the country and you worked in a farm, you would not suffer from insomnia. You will be so tired of physical work and so immersed in nature that you will not have this. But so those were the key events when this was discovered and named. And this particular TNO signifies a soul's need for creative and nurturing dreams, and is also linked to drugs, especially poppy and opiates. It was very, very prominent during the pandemic, and now it is again highlighted with Jupiter conjuncted. So you might expect something again is being concocted. Think about it. First was the flight situation 23 years ago. Then the 19 years later the pandemic, and 20 and 21, really 20 years later. But they are now the powers that be are very, very impatient, and probably there will be a third installment, something, maybe the war, I don't know, but they are going to push us into complete poverty and all kinds of stuff if you don't pay attention. And the last one here is Pelion, the mountain itself, where the caves of the centaurs are. So in transcendental karmic astrology, this is the mountain of life, which needs to be climbed, the sacred space, which is ours. And this is very important, that we should have a sacred space. Now, if the World Economic Forum will have its way, we won't own anything by 2030. Let's see if this is going to occur. I hope not. So this is the space-time moment of Jupiter entering Gemini, and as I said, what you will expect, or what you could expect from this ingress, is the complete chaos of information overload, misinformation, disinformation, and accusing each other of the same. So pay attention and read and question everything there is out there, because I used to say that, in the 70s, when this Hungary was a communist country, we had about two main newspapers and one for the evening. And of course, everyone was lying. Each of them was lying, but at least we bought the newspaper, and we perfectly knew well that the opposite was true. But now there's no such thing. So the opposite is also not true. So you need to research every detail, every piece of information, if you want to be on top of everything. And this is the message of Jupiter in Gemini. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.